Hello there. My name is Klein Ileleji, and I beat the often path by developing affordable solar drying solutions and multi-purpose devices for small growers globally.
Welcome back to the Beat the Offen Path podcast. I'm your host, Ross Palmer. On this show, we showcase unusual and outside-the-box success stories to remind us that there's much more to this thing we call life than what meets the eye in our everyday social media consumption. Joining me today is Dr. Klein Ileleji, and he's dedicated his life to agriculture and engineering. Discover how his curiosity led him down multiple career paths, ultimately leading him on a journey from his home in Nigeria around the world and ending up in the United States. Today, he's a professor of agricultural and biological engineering at Purdue University, and he's the co-founder of JUA Technologies, that's JUA, a company that makes solar-powered food dryers for small farmers in the developing world. He distilled his decades of experience into a meaningful product to combat food insecurity, and for that, he has my deep admiration. So here's Dr. Klein Ileleji of JUA Technologies. Well, welcome to the show, Klein. It's a pleasure to have you here. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Ross.
I have to say that your last name is one of the coolest sounding last names I've ever heard. I love the way it flows off of the tongue.
Well,
Where does it come from?
It's from Nigeria. I'm Nigeria by birth, and from Delta State in Nigeria, just by the coast. And it's the ethnic identity is Urobo, and that's where the name comes from. Yeah.
I think it sounds great, Ileleji. It's just got a nice ring to it. It's very smooth
Thanks.
off the tongue. I love it. Well, welcome to the show. I'm so pleased to have you here. As we discussed before we started taping this, the reason that we bring people like you on the show is to spark discussions. And I think what you have done sparks a very interesting discussion on a variety of fronts. And I was telling you before we began that I briefly encountered via a random stranger the idea of drying food or fruits or freeze drying. Something I've never done, something I've never considered doing. But you have built a business around this, and it has a few implications for people like me and also other people around the world. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do and how you got here.
Great. So I always say my first job as a professor of agricultural and biological engineering at Purdue. So that's my day job. And I also am the co-founder and CEO of JUA Technologies International, which is a company that develops affordable solar drying devices for growers globally. Our device is essentially to dry produce, so fruits and vegetables, herbs, spices, medicinal plants, those types of things, which have very high moisture, but also they're high in rich in nutrients, micronutrients, and vitamins. And one of the things for these types of products is once they are dried, they can store well for a very long time. So essentially, you're improving your shelf life. You're also reducing their weight, and so they're very good. You want to dry things like mangoes and fruits and veggies for to use in cereals. People take them for hiking. Preppers who keep things for a long time, they
Right.
try to store. So improving shelf life and also reducing the other big thing for us in terms of our mission is to reduce post-harvest losses for small growers in developing countries and waste. That's a huge thing. If we can curb waste and take all that wasted produce into dry shelf stable produce that can sell at a high premium, it's a win-win for food security as well as economic empowerment.
So there's a variety of very cool things that you just discussed there. But first, I see that you're representing Purdue right now, wearing the shirt. You've got the logo on, right?
Yeah.
You've got Purdue. So how long have you been a professor at Purdue?
So I have been a professor, should I say I've been at Purdue for, this is my 21st year,
Wow,
but
okay.
I've been on the faculty of ag and biological engineering for 19 of those 21 years. Prior to that, I was a postdoc, so working essentially under a professor. And my areas are in grain post harvest, produce drying using solar, and I do also work on other things like adding value to, shall I say, spent produce like or spent grain, like distillers' grain, brewers' grains, particularly technology, handling of grains, conditioning, drying, and stuff like that. So the drying of fruits and veggies is within my well house, and I started this out of a project supported by USAID, and that led to the development of the product. And at that point, I realized that the only way I'm going to get it in the hands of people is to commercialize it.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So, flashback to when you were getting your doctorate, what were you studying at that time?
So I studied agricultural engineering at the Slovak Agricultural University in Nitra, Slovenské Polnohospodárske univerzity v Nitře. That's in Slovak language. And I
It's very easy for me to repeat.
and I
Wait, I know one thing. Hang on, is this correct? I heard there's a tongue twister in Slovakian. It goes "sturj prst skurz kurk." There's no vowels in it. It means when there's no rain, the road is dry, or something like that. I don't know.
was
I'm not sure.
okay.
No, maybe it's something else.
There are a lot of tongue twisters. For example,
There's no vowels.
one of the ones I like the words is ice cream. It's
Okay.
zmerzlina.
Zmrzlina.
Yeah,
Nice. I like it already.
yeah,
That's fun.
yeah.
So you studied over there in Slovakia? Is that where you? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so I studied over there. I spent 5 years in Slovakia, and my PhD was in agricultural engineering. And I actually studied hermetic storage, primarily heat and mass transfer, and hermetic stored corn was my research topic. But while I was in Slovakia, Cornell University in Ithaca had a program on applied economics and business management, very similar to their 1 year master's in professional studies. They gave scholarships. It was supported by the Soros Foundation or Open Society Fund. And of course, a student at that time, all I can do is study. I enrolled in the program. And that really gave me, in my mind, a lot of interest and exposure about business and what it is, economics, accounting, and things like marketing. I also did some courses, again, offered at the University of Delaware in Slovakia, but the Cornell program was where I'll say really exposed a lot of interest in business for me. And then that state, I got that degree, but I shelved it, but it was somewhere there.
So what attracted you to that line of study? Because obviously you've committed a large part of your life to this. How did you get involved, and why did you decide that this was something you were interested in?
Very good question. I'll say by accident, really. My passion was flying. I wanted to be a pilot, and I also like tinkering in things. I know my nickname. My dad called me was engineer, and because I just fixed things all around the house. So I knew I liked engineering, and I said, well, I'm going to fly or be an aeronautical engineer. Flying is a very expensive program globally, and in Nigeria it's even quite expensive. We didn't have aeronautical engineering in our universities. I wasn't really from a family that was of means, well-to-do, so I couldn't do flying. So I went to my path then I thought was I'll study mechanical engineering in Nigeria, then over to the States and pursue a master's or PhD in aeronautical or aerospace. I did not make it into mechanical engineering when I did the entrance exam, but my scores were enough to get into an engineering program, but not mechanical. Mechanical was one of those majors that was highly sought by anyone who wanted to do engineering. So the mechanical, electrical, civil, the traditional ones. I even hadn't heard about agricultural engineering at all didn't even know that existed. And so my mom went to the university just to visit some professors and found out they had this program called agricultural engineering. They were lacking students, and they had people like me who could come in with enough scores. My score was sufficient to go into that engineering program, but not mechanical because of, again, the numbers. My mom came back and she told me, well, why not go see these professors? And she told me what they told her. And essentially, what they told her was agricultural engineering was an engineering program, it's just application of engineering to agriculture. And by the way, if your son comes in, he will be able to change after the first year. In Nigeria, engineering is a 5 year program. The first year is normally higher level math, physics, and chemistry. So I got into the program with the conviction, or shall I say, a hope that I was going to change to mechanical engineering. For me, that was the sell. So when I got into the program, we had one class on introduction to agricultural engineering the first year, and after that class, it was for me the class was more was what gave me that impetus to stick to agricultural engineering. I found out that it was beyond just applied engineering and agriculture. Some of the things I learned is, I mean, Nigeria is a food insecure country. Most of the growers are poor. They lack technology. I was going to be serving a part of the workforce and society that really hasn't been served. And if you look at it, Nigeria needed more of developing its agricultural sector than its aerospace sector. We literally had nothing like aerospace. It's only airlines. If I was going to do that, I'll have to think of working overseas. So it was the mission, and then just the global mission of food, environment, and everything. It was the mission of what I believe was the problem out there that ag engineers had to solve that kept me. So I pivoted from going looking at something I really liked, and I have passion, and I still have passion to fly actually. And I did some training just for fun, but
Yeah.
I pivoted to this global mission of food solving the world's food problems for the world's poorest and things like that. And that's what really got me into the profession.
Incredible. So your first observation, you realized that it's an easy problem with an easy solution, and you said, "I'll figure this thing out in 5 minutes," right?
Actually, not really. It's the,
That's a
the
joke.
yeah, I know. If you look at the problem of the poor and look at ag engineering, the first thing I realized is that, and actually, I know my dad sort of made fun of me. Was like, I hope you realize that the people you're going to be serving are the poor people. In Nigeria, they're farmers who hold hoes and cutlasses. They're not farmers like here, with combines and tractors and technology. You're talking of peasant farmers. And but if you look at the mission, it's like you're trying to provide solutions for people that really don't have a lot of money to pay you. So when you are engineering anything, it has to be cost is has to be coming into play. You're going to be developing technologies that for people a lot who are not educated. So when you think of that, it's an engineering challenge on its own because a lot of things have to be intuitive. You look at the global needs; they are so varied. We really have needs everywhere, and so it's a really enormous when you look at the solution. I mean the problems to and but it's a noble one. And at that time, I selected it. It was not, for a better term, it was not the in thing. Now, I think it's an in thing. globally that people are gravitating towards the profession. But when I was in it and when I selected it, it was not something that was in. In fact, most of my colleagues that graduated with me are not in the profession. Most of them
They
are
went
doing
somewhere else
something else. Yeah. I think
because they chased
probably,
the money, perhaps.
yeah, probably less than 10%.
Hmm.
And I don't blame them, really, because there are no jobs out there in most of the developing countries for agriculture and biological engineers. You don't have equipment companies that are selling to farmers. Farmers don't have the money to buy equipment. So but if you look at it, it's a blue ocean, right? It's an opportunity to create something, and look at that market and develop that market. So it might seem like it's something that's not lucrative, but in my opinion, it's a blue ocean.
There's nothing bigger than food insecurity on a global scale, I think, and there certainly won't be, especially if these systems start breaking down and if the trade starts breaking down, the oil pipelines start breaking down. Food insecurity is only going to become more of an issue as we go forward. So you travel to Slovakia, your mind is awakened, you realize, okay, maybe I'll stick with this thing that I thought I didn't want to do. And you come back, or you come to the United States. How did you end up becoming a professor at Purdue?
A very good question. So, finished my 5 years undergrad in Nigeria. Right after I finished, and I was doing supposed to be a 1 year. They call it national service. Uh, my 6 months into that year, 1 year, or probably more than 6 months, I got a scholarship, a government scholarship to go to Slovakia to pursue a PhD. So in ag engineering. So I go to Slovakia. While doing it, I did a master's in applied economics and business management, like I mentioned before. And after that, I was looking to come back to Nigeria. Unfortunately, to go back to Nigeria, unfortunately, at that time, we had a dictatorial government. Things were chaotic. This was in 1999. And I went did a scoping mission. A lot of people advised that it's not right. I should look at going elsewhere to get experience. So I pursued various places, actually several places, and the U.S. was the one that panned out, that I got. And I eventually moved first to the University of Minnesota, worked under a professor for 2.5 years, doing research on the storability of corn varieties, essentially how corn stores under various temperatures and moisture content. And then after 2.5 years, I moved to Purdue. Actually, just before about 9/11, I started a day before 9/11 at Purdue, and at Purdue I was working in the areas of grain storage and handling with a professor by the name of Dr. Dirk Meyer, and worked there for 3.5 years, and joined before I was blessed to have a faculty position, a position open. I interviewed and got accepted. And while at Purdue on the faculty, I actually, in my initial time on the faculty as an assistant professor, I focused on feedstocks like biomass for the production of biofuels. If you remember, just after 9/11, under President Bush, we were talking about our biofuels and growing our own crops from switchgrass and corn stover and all that stuff. So I was part of
Absolutely.
that phase. So that's what I did initially. And then in 2007, I started coming back to the field doing some work here and there in storage. I also did research in distillers grains. That's the co-product after ethanol is produced from corn. It's used primarily as a feed. I did a lot of work in that area. But in 2007, when Dr. Dirk Meyer left Purdue for another university, he used to do the storage and handling part. I took a lot of that. It was anyway my background, And in 2009, I started doing international work, first in Nigeria, Ghana, and that's when I went back, called to my roots, where I was raised and brought up, to see some of the challenges growers faced. And I saw those challenges in ways I hadn't seen even prior to my leaving Nigeria, because in a lot of the USAID and US Department of Agriculture Foreign Act Service research projects and capacity development projects in Nigeria and Ghana, and then subsequently in Kenya and Senegal, we were actually going to the villages and working at the grassroots with farmers. So you basically were seeing a lot of the issues they faced,
Yeah.
and that's what prompted a lot of the development that eventually drove me into starting the company. Yeah.
Incredible. So I think this is a pretty much a foregone conclusion, but would you say that travel was an instrumental part of your perspective and your success in general?
Oh, absolutely. I love travel. I travel is, if you can afford it or your work takes you. In my case, mostly for my work, it opens your eyes to a lot of things, perspectives in terms of your work, perspective in terms of life, perspective in terms of how you see things and see other people. It helps you appreciate the world. It helps you understand that the world is bigger than your own family, your own environment, your own neighborhood, bigger than the country in which you stay in. And I've been to countries I will never have thought. Slovakia was not a country that I would have ever thought of going. If you ask most Nigerians and most people, will think of the Western countries. Historically, African countries will think of their colonial countries. So the UK, France, Germany, those kind of Western
Yep.
Europe.
Same
Then
in the United States generally.
yeah,
Yep.
the US, Canada, Australia, right? We'll think of those countries. Going to Slovakia was of the beaten path. It was.
Absolutely.
I got to learn a different language, learn to write, read, and speak. I got to learn a lot of Slavic languages like Russian, Polish, Czech. When you learn a different language, it's some depth in understanding culture and thinking of people. And right now, I was listening to Daniel Tonkapi. Yes, it says from Kazakhstan. I've been there.
Yeah.
Tajikistan. I've been to countries that I wouldn't have thought of going. And these are one of the most beautiful places with very beautiful people. And one of the things in my travels that I'm always fascinated by, or shall I say reaffirmed by, is humans are all the same. We want the same for our families. We want a peaceful life. We want good
But I thought you were going to
marriages.
say, I thought the answer there is, traveling makes it easier to hate other people. You see us as us versus them. We're all separate. They're just groups, right? That's the
Yeah,
message.
yeah.
We're not all the same. We're supposed to hate each other, Klein. That's how it works.
It's amazing. I really traveling helps to heal,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
you just come to realize that we're all the same, just living in different locations. That's all.
Yeah.
And obviously, our cultures mold our perspectives, but inherently, in the morning, everybody's going to work. You wake up in the morning. At normal time, people are going to work in California, Nigeria, Ghana, Brisbane, Medellin in Colombia. I don't know. You name it. People wake up and kids are going to school, and you go to the elementary schools and teachers are teaching, and pretty much everybody has an aspiration to get a job and study something, and those who are athletes have the same aspirations, and so it's fascinating, and that's what I love about traveling. And the fascination is that while we're the same, we see the other thing about traveling is you see snippets of differences that shouldn't reinforce, oh, they do things differently, but out of curiosity, wow, I didn't know you could do this that way. I didn't know you could prepare rice that way. I didn't know you could eat that way, I didn't know, oh, you have this flavor of wine. So, yes, we are all this, you see the same goals and aspirations and things, but you also see the differences that makes the world beauty. And someone, I heard this saying, is that if you don't like diversity or differences, go to the zoo. No one
Mm-hmm.
goes to the zoo to see all elephants or all lions. You go to the zoo and you're fascinated by the variety of animals you see and the variety of birds and the colors and just how they all, in their own ecosystem, so, you know, behave. And that's the world, and that's why I love traveling. And even in right now, my company sells technology globally, and I always ask, what are you drawing? What is it going to be used for? Because we are all trying to, right, store our foods, improve shelf life, all the same goal, but drawing different things and going to
Mm-hmm.
be prepared in different ways. So it's very exciting. Yeah.
That is very exciting. And sidebar before we go forward, which country makes the best jollof rice?
Well, that's the debate. It's a fight between Nigeria, Senegal, Ghana, right? I will say, to be honest, I know my Nigerian folks. I root for Nigeria, but I respect all of them. I love all the kinds of jollofs I have tasted, but I'll give it up to Nigeria.
Okay, all right. We got one vote for Nigeria.
Yeah.
Okay, noted. So, how long did it take you to finalize that design from the minute that you realized that that's what you wanted to do?
It took me about say about 2 years. The first year was more of a prototype made of wood, and a lot of the testing was done at Purdue, and they had various iterations from cloth. I visited various folks trying to design various things, working with undergrad and grad students who I directed doing the research. And eventually, once I got that was what it was, I went to the design department at Purdue on campus, and I met with a designer, a visiting professor by the name of Hiju Kim. She now works for IDEO design company, but she became and she is still my lead designer on contract. And essentially, Hiju Kim, I took my ideas to Hiju Kim, and Hiju Kim and I sat down, and I told Hiju I provide engineering, and she provides design aesthetics. I told her I wanted something that was going to be designed for a valuable customer, and that customer was the small grower in a developing country. I didn't want something ugly. I said, I see a lot of products developed for developing countries. They are ugly. I'm like, I want this grower to look at this product and say, this it was developed for me. I want it to be nice and looking, but I also want it to appeal to consumers in the U.S. Or in the West, consumers in Europe. Now, so I was looking at, yes, this is the market, but I also wanted to appeal for those who have home gardens and things like that in the U.S. or even small growers in the U.S. because we have small growers as well. So Hidra Kim and I worked on the design, and I'm glad Hidra and I worked on it because she brought a design perspective that I did not have, in terms of looking at economics, looking at design stuff in ways, looking at human factor and stuff like that. And then we worked with an amazing manufacturer, a local manufacturer in Indiana, who saw the design and told us, hey, we can manufacture this. You guys got to start all over again. And he recommended us to another designer to design for manufacturing. So it was an eye opener for me because I thought, oh, I spent money on doing this, and then I realized I got to spend more money on,
Sounds like business.
yeah, just changing everything I had. But I had between Hiju I and this design for manufacturer, we got it done. And must commend the manufacturer because we were nobodies, we're a startup, and he literally treated us like we were his top customers.
I wanted to ask, now that you've got this product out, after all of the hurdles and challenges, now that's actually out in the wild, how has the response been? Have the small growers given you feedback?
Oh, the response have been great, has been great. In fact, when we first took it out in 2018 to show small growers in Senegal and Kenya, I remember one lady when we brought the product to her house, she said it's like God appeared to me. I mean, it's just phenomenal. We've I always like listening to what people say before I talk about the products. So I really see if they really like it or not. And for most part, people are excited about the product. It's serving the need. We've it's I'll say it's not really known globally, unfortunately. But we in the part that is known, we're growing. In Kenya, last year we supplied the government 8,000 units. The year
Wow.
before, 8,000 units. We have a subsidiary company in Kenya now, and we can ship the product all over Kenya and in parts of East Africa. And we had to start the subsidiary in Kenya because of the response in Kenya. We've sold in over 28 states in the US and over 10 different countries from Tajikistan all the way to Australia. So what is our hang up is we don't have capacity, human capacity, as well as capital to scale marketing and access. And if we can scale marketing and access, that will be great. But we even have a more exciting product. The Dehydrate you see at the back there is just one of the products. Our signature product is the Dehy It's actually a multi-purpose solar dehydrator and power generator. Like Delfast, if Delfast wants to sell into Kenya, into Nigeria, into a lot of these rural parts of the world, where's the power to charge your bikes? Our unit will charge. So our multi-purpose platform is also a power generator. You can dehydrate your crops, you can power your home, you can charge your bike, you name it. So we are
Brilliant.
essentially a one-stop shop. And that product, we've gotten SBIR funds, phase 1 and 2 for it. We'll be going. We're looking actually for support, venture capital. We're going to be going on the road to look for venture capital because it's more involving. It has all the bells and whistles, like some of the technologies that have come on your platform have. And I'm really excited about that because that will empower small growers to grow for the market. It will improve the quality of their lives, and it will provide access of other technologies that need power that currently cannot. For example, like you said, when you talk of the e revolution on in mobility, In most developing countries, that wouldn't happen in villages because they don't have power to do that. Our platform will provide that.
How cool would that be? I would love
Yeah,
to see it.
yeah. I hope sometime when it comes out, I have the prototype in my garage, and my garage is my R&D,
Yes.
and typical American, right? And hopefully in the next within 2 years we have it on the market. That's the
I think
goal.
that's brilliant. So
Yeah.
to close it out, I normally ask a different question, but I'm going to close this with a very special question today. So it's a question for you, a choice, one or the other. Which would you rather have? A bunch of people telling you that using your product is like God appeared from the sky, or a brand new Mercedes? Go.
The first option.
Oh, okay. I rest my
Yeah.
case, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Yeah. The
As a
first option.
lawyer, I rest my case. Exactly. After all these years, that is your reward. Your reward is the human response. Your reward is people is achieving the mission that you set out to achieve. And I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
And may the noble path benefit you and your family tremendously in the years to come. May it reward you generously. But above all, I just applaud you for pursuing that path and for going down what was at the time unpopular, like you said. And as popular as it may be now, it's still not popular enough. We have to get this message out there more. And so I thank you for doing that. And I thank you very much for joining me on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure to host you here, Klein.
Thank you very much, Ross, for what you're doing, telling our stories, especially for people that like us. We need those stories out there. I want to shout out to anyone. Please patronize us at JUA Technologies International, and it's just JUAtechnology.com. Please patronize us for every unit you buy. Definitely, you're helping and provide access to units where they're needed most.
Well, that sounds fantastic. And with that, we will wrap up the episode. But before we do, I just want to hear one last time. How do you pronounce your last name?
Ileleji.
Yes. That's so awesome.
Ileleji.
I
Yeah,
love it.
so
Well, thank you, Klein. It's been an absolute pleasure. Keep doing what you're doing. And with that, the official podcast is over.